This is block number 6, an amendment discussion by Yolanda Olivares. The 6 amendments that will be discussed is Amendment 16, Amendment 17, Amendment 18, Amendment 19, Amendment 22, and Amendment 26. The protections that were offered by Amendment 16 were that the Congress had the right to collect tax on income. The historical background about Amendment 16 starts during the Civil War Congress, which passed the Revenue Act of 1861, which included a tax on personal incomes to help pay war expenses. The tax was repealed 10 years later. However, in 1894, Congress enacted a flat-rate federal income tax, which was ruled unconstitutional the following year by the U.S. Supreme Court, because it was a direct tax, not a portion, according to the population of each state. So the 16th Amendment was created to remove this objection. The different groups of people that worked towards the amendment were throughout the 1860s, 1870s, and 1880s, where the farmers formed such political organizations to advocate many reforms considered radical, including a graduated income tax. However, governments and businesses supported the amendments because they were able to benefit from them. Amendment 16 faced two obstacles. People argued that the language in Stanton v. Baltic Mining Company, the income tax is an unconstitutional direct tax that should be divided. And many people argued that the amendment wasn't actually stated in the Constitution, so why should they pay taxes? Amendment 16 was submitted by Congress to the states on July 12, 1909. It met the requirement of being ratified by 3/4 of the states on February 3, 1913, and it took about 4 years for this amendment to ratify. The overall impact of Amendment 16 was that Congress now has the power to lay and collect taxes on income. The protection that is offered by Amendment 17 is that it designates the election process rather than appointment for senators. The historical background behind Amendment 17 was that it originally, under Article 1 and 3 of the Constitution, each state legislator elected a state senator for 6 years term. Each state, regardless of size, is entitled to 2 senators as part of the Connecticut Compromise between the small and large states. This interfered with the House of Representatives, a body elected by popular votes, and was described as an uncontroversial decision. The group of people that worked towards the 17th Amendment was during the 1890s, the House of Representatives passed several resolutions proposing a constitutional amendment for the direct election of senators. However, each Senate refused to even take a vote. There were 2 obstacles that were faced to pass the Amendment 17. First, it was corruption. There was a sense that senator elections were bought and sold. Between the 1857 and 1900, the Senate investigated 3 elections over corruption. And the other conflict was at the lower electoral deadlock. Because state legislators were charged with deciding who to appoint as senators, the system relied on them being able to agree. So some states couldn't be able to agree, so it was hard to send a representative to Congress. Amendment 17 passed by Congress on May 13, 1912. It was ratified April 8, 1913, and it took about a year for this amendment to ratify. The overall impact about Amendment 17 was that it altered the process for electing United States senators, and it changed the way vacancies would be filled. Under the original Constitution provision, state legislators filled vacancies when a senator left office before the end of the term. The 17th Amendment provides that state legislators can grant governors the right to make temporary appointments, which last until a special election is provided to fill the seat. The protections offered by Amendment 18 was that the selling, manufacturing, or distributing of alcoholic beverages is prohibited. The historical background about Amendment 18 is started way back into the temperance movement during the first decade of the 20th century. Prohibition was difficult to enforce despite the passage of companion legislation known as the Volstead Act. The major group of people that were working towards Amendment 18 was women, but also church groups and business elite, feminists, and political reformers were moving towards a dry society and began to call for a nationwide law banning alcoholic substances. The obstacle faced in passing the 18th Amendment was that it was difficult to enforce, and the government lost about $300 million trying to enforce the amendment. Amendment 18 was ratified on January 16, 1919. It took in effect on January 17, 1920, and it took approximately 1 year for this amendment to take effect. The overall impact of Amendment 18 was that there was a significant reduction in alcoholic consumption among the general public, in particular among low-income groups. Consumption soon climbed as underworld entrepreneurs began producing raw good alcohol. Likewise, there was a general reduction in overall crime, mainly the types of crime associated with the effects of alcohol consumption. The protections offered by Amendment 19 were that the women were able to finally vote. The historical background behind Amendment 19 was that women were not allowed to vote before this amendment because they were considered uneducated. However, in 1917, America entered World War I, and women aided the war efforts in various capacities that helped break down most of the remaining oppositions to women's suffrage. By 1918, women had acquired equal suffrage with men in 5 states, and both the Democrat and Republican parties openly endorsed female enfranchisement. And once again, women were the group that worked towards the 19th Amendment, and they created the women's suffrage movement, which really helped them get their rights. There are 2 obstacles that were faced to pass Amendment 19. The first one was that passing this amendment, there was a conflict within the women's suffrage movement, which was really making it hard for people to support them. However, many people still believe in the spheres, which is a gender roles for each male and female. Amendment 19 was passed by Congress on July 4, 1919. It was ratified on August 18, 1920. It took about a year and a month to ratify this amendment. The overall impact about Amendment 19 is that now women are able to vote and exercise their equal rights as men. The protections offered by Amendment 22 is that the president is limited to only 2 terms as the president, and 1 term is considered 4 years. The historical background about Amendment 22 is that the constraint was instituted to impede the development of pseudo monarchy. In addition to Washington, Thomas Jefferson also contributed to the 2-term limit by suggesting an office without restraints, quote, "You as the president for life," which will obfuscate the premise of a democratic government. A group that worked towards Amendment 22 was the Republicans. Once they gained control of Congress while Truman was president, following nearly 16 years of Democrat control of the White House of Representatives, controlled 18th Congress introduced the 22nd Amendment. An obstacle that was faced to pass Amendment 22 was that several congressmen, including Democrat Republicans, have introduced legislation to repeal the 22nd Amendment, but each resolution died before making it out of the respective committee. Amendment 22 passed by Congress on March 21, 1947. It was then ratified on February 27, 1951, and it took about 4 years for this amendment to ratify. The overall impact of Amendment 22 is that this amendment limits the presidency for any future president. The protection that is offered by Amendment 26 is that the voting age is lowered to 18 years old. The historical background of Amendment 26 is that it starts off during World War II and the Vietnam War, when young men were denied the right to vote, but they were allowed to fight for the country. In 1970 case, Oregon versus Mitchell, a divided U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Congress had the right to regulate the minimum age in federal elections, but not at the state and local level. The group of people that worked towards the 26th Amendment, it was a young activism group from the National Education Association and their allies to harness the energy of student activism in the 1960s and make the dream a reality. One of the obstacles that was faced to pass Amendment 26 was that in 1970, President Richard Nixon passed the Voting Rights Act, which allowed for the voting age to be 18. However, that year, the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional for Congress to mandate voting age for state and local elections. The U.S. Senate voted unanimously on March 10, 1971 for the proposed amendment. Once the House voted on March 23, that same year the amendment was ratified, and it took 13 days for this amendment to be ratified, which has been the shortest in any other case. The overall impact about Amendment 22 is that because of the World War II, the age for voting has changed from 21 to 18.